take a brief moment here and record some of your ideas or questions about what it means to be heritable or non-heritable. Shout it out.
Sickle cell anemia for heritable?
Okay, heritable, sickle cell anemia. How do we know it's heritable?
Because you can look at a parent who, if you look at a parent who might be a carrier but doesn't show, and you can look at their blood cells to see the phenotypic representation of it and then trace it down to children and parents.
Okay, so what causes sickle cell anemia? Anybody? It's a defect in hemoglobin. So it's a defect, yes, in the cell, it's the red blood cell. The part of the cell that's affected is the hemoglobin, which is protein, a molecule, yes, both. If it's a protein, what does that mean? Why are we talking about it in genetics class? It's encoded by a gene. Right, so the defect in hemoglobin that causes sickle cell anemia, you can trace back the problem to a mutation in the DNA. Hence, it's heritable. Good job.
Skills would be non-heritable.
What would be?
Skills, such as some people riding a bike, learning to read, write, even linguistics.
Okay, speech. Manners. Anybody want to discuss either of those two? Do we all agree that those are not heritable?
Those are mostly learned.
They're mostly learned. So, as I mentioned to a couple of students after class not yesterday, 2 days ago, this is basically a debate about is a trait nature or is it nurture? Is it inheritable, is it genetically based, or is it something you learn? Is it environmental? Is a trait a product of where you live, what you encounter in life, whether you smoke, whether you drink, whether your parents were hippies, whatever. So, are skills and manners in any way heritable? Yeah.
I looked up whether right or left-handedness was learned or heritable.
Okay.
It's both. So
Great.
I feel like that's ambidextrous or not.
So I did ask you to, or challenge you to find some examples that might break the rules here. And there are lots of traits where scientists don't yet know whether or not they're caused by nature or nurture, genes or environment, or both.
On top of that, I came across another one where such as migratory birds, behavior, I believe, became heritable. It's not exactly something they can learn, it's just something that they know to do.
Yeah, so what about instinct?
That would have to be heritable.
I'm going to put it across the border here. So it's an open question for us to pursue throughout the semester. What sort of information, this is one thing I'm hoping you take away from the class as a whole once we're done with the semester, is if I asked you a question on the final that was something like, how would you know, what would you do as a scientist to determine if a trait was genetic or not? What would you do? That might show up on an exam. So this is a fantastic point. If you didn't hear it, twin studies are a great way that, at least in many animals, including humans, you can ask if genetics has an impact on a trait or environment. Because you have two individuals that are almost genetically identical, never exactly, but very closely genetically identical. And you can find out if they differ in traits. That's probably not because their genetics are different, because they're identical twins. So if they differ, it's probably those differences are probably nurture, not nature. Environment, not genes. Okay. Let's see. Now I'm going to pause on this for a second. made a word cloud when I asked you what topics are you looking forward to learning. I was happy to see things showing up that you'd expect, like DNA and traits, and oh, look, there's genetics. Not very creative, but okay. Mutations, hereditary, heritable, diseases show up a lot. Oh, it's too pixely, I can't read it. Dominant, protein, replication. Does that say monkeys? No, I don't know. But topics this is more disturbing to me. And again, I understand because a lot of you don't think you're geneticists or you don't think yet that you want to be geneticists. So I'm hoping that the words DNA and genetics showed up in these responses because they were saying things that I don't want to learn about DNA in a genetics class are, and that's how the DNA and the genetics words got in there. But I do definitely understand where a lot of this, I think I understand, where a lot of this is coming from. So once you look past DNA and genetics, what else stands out?
History.
History.
Makeup.
Plants.
Genotyping.
Genotyping, structures, transcription, translation, meiosis, mitosis, punnet, Mendel, peas. So these are screenshots of some of the actual comments now. We get rid of the word clouds and we actually look at what people said. So the left side is the black boxes are things people were looking forward to, and on the right side we've got some of you, what you told me you're not looking forward to learning about. Why am I doing this? Again, because I want you to know that even if you share the same concerns with many of your classmates. My job is to alleviate those concerns and to try to help you understand these concepts, even if you don't think that you can understand them because you've seen them before and you didn't get it. And also, I'm here to say that if you think you already know about DNA structure or transcription or translation, you don't know it all yet, neither do I. But that's my challenge as your instructor, is to try to teach you new things that you don't know about yet, even when you say, I don't want to learn about those topics because I already learned about that in junior high and in high school and in 2 classes already as a college student. What I really want to point out in this slide are some interesting contrasts. Some of you are looking forward to learning about Mendel's first and second laws. Somebody's a suck up. No, I'm just kidding. I'm glad to hear it, because somebody has to be excited about Mendel's first and second laws, but then others of you don't want to learn about Mendel. Maybe that has to do with that history, right? People don't want to learn about the history of genetics. Good news, I don't want to teach you about the history of genetics. So we've got a match there. There is a little bit of history that's important, but important point. Names and dates will not be on tests. There will be no memorization of when did this experiment occur and who did it. Why?
Because you can Google that.
Because you can look that up. Remember from last class, I'm not interested about testing you on factual memorization. You've all got tablet computers that are connected to the internet. If I asked you that sort of a question on an exam where you have a tablet computer, you should all get 100%. So why would I bother asking that question? I'm looking at higher level questions, so no history. Some of you are excited about learning about telomeres and others not. I'm impressed. We've got some of you look forward to meiosis and others not to mitosis, and so forth. So interesting trends. But again, I see my job as twofold. One is to challenge those of you that have already heard about a lot of these concepts, and also to help make it relevant and to help give you multiple ways of thinking about a lot of these, like Punnett squares, which I know a lot of people, including myself, when I was a sophomore and I was taking genetics, Punnett squares, horrible. But, okay. So we're going to do one more activity now. Got a little, as I said, an introductory quiz. I want to know what information you bring with you about genetics already. So we've got a pre-test for genetics. This is for points, again, but only for participation. So do you complete it or not? I do ask that you do your best on answering the questions, not just to guess randomly, but that's how this works. So if you go onto our Blackboard website and go into the URLs folder, you'll see this link to 20 January genetics quiz. And this is just like last class. This is a Qualtrics survey. So you should be able to do this on tablet, laptop, phone, for those of you that don't have your tablets yet. And when you're done with this process, I'll ask you to do one of two things. If you finish faster than other people, there are two things you can do. One would be, I'm going to leave this slide up here so you can see it. One would be to go to Socrative, like we did at the end of last class, use the app or go to the website. There's just two questions there. It's basically to record your attendance in class today. The other thing I would love to have you do, two other things actually, I'll write these on the board with that old technology, dry erase markers, to go to todaysmeet.com and to give me more detailed feedback. If I said any of those things that were on the board here, things that you were excited to learn about or things that you're not excited to learn about, if any of those resonated with you, if you can give me, by typing into todaysmeet.com, a little more context. Why is it that you really don't want to learn about telomere shortening and aging? Is it because that's boring to you, or is it because you've already learned that in the class? Right, so if you can give me a little bit more information about how you responded. You can do that anonymously. You don't have to put your name in when you go to todaysmeet.com. That's one thing to do after you're done with this pre-test. Socrative is the second, and the third one would be, if you're done with both of those and you still have time, start scouring the internet for those genetics and society news pieces. See if you can find something to present. Okay. If you've got any technical issues, please raise your hand. And we'll come back together just before the end of class to do a couple of announcements.
Where do you say we'll find that quiz?
It's Blackboard. It's in course documents /URLs, or it's in the course documents folder in a folder called URL.